Much ado about mulch. Could you mulch your yard and end up in a massive fight with your HOA? That's just the beginning of this wild story as Anastasia Olmos, investigative reporter with Atlanta News First Investigates, continues her investigation of homeowners associations. And this one just never ends, does it?
No, when the homeowner had originally reached out to me, I had met her originally from some of the Senate meetings at the Capitol and got her email and sent her my form she filled out. And originally I thought, well, it's just mulch. I think there's some other issues that I should cover, over just somebody facing fines for mulch. But as I started to talk to her more on the phone and get kind of the full story, I was thinking, what? There's so many people involved that sound like things are just not done correctly, that there's definitely a story here. And I go out there. I actually had a couple other HOA stories lined up before hers, but I go out there and she's got her home decorated for Halloween, and she says to me, I hope this scares away the homeowners association from actually taking action on my home. And here's the story.
I just want it to stop. It's been a complete nightmare.
A nightmare in the Glen Meadows community of Marietta.
Get this off of my property.
He's on the property line with y'all both share, which is totally legal.
A homeowner says her house is haunted by the HOA.
They're saying you changed the footprint of your flower beds and you did not submit an ACC request for it. The violation is not submitting an ACC request.
So we went digging for the skeletons beneath the mulch.
Would you like to do an interview with us?
No, not without my attorney.
The HOA's attorney telling this homeowner,
Be governed accordingly.
The thing is, if something changes, nobody in this neighborhood escapes having to put in the form.
This is Kobe.
Danielle Reyes moved to Georgia from California in July 2024.
I worked very hard to become a homeowner.
She had no idea replacing pine straw with mulch would be a grave mistake.
It's unbelievable that I'm being fined for mulch.
With a daily fine of $25, her current HOA bill is more than $4,000, now with a lien on her home. Danielle believes it all started in a dispute over her cutting limbs from her neighbor's tree leaning over her roof. Her neighbor is the HOA board treasurer.
Little did I realize that the consequences appear to be the retaliatory violations that I've received.
When Danielle replaced the pine straw in April, Ring camera video shows her neighbor outside upset as the HOA vice president instructs her how to properly place the mulch. You can see the treasurer here in Danielle's cell phone video sweeping away remnants of mulch on her side of the brick. Within weeks, Danielle received an HOA violation letter referencing community covenant rules. No exterior construction, addition, or alteration shall be made without written approval from the Architectural Committee, which we'll refer to as the ACC. The fine said she'd been notified twice before and would be charged $25 a day, which she says made no sense. According to the ACC standards, a landscaping plan isn't required to plant existing flower beds with pine straw, bark, or mulch. Other material requires ACC approval.
You can see here.
Danielle reached out to the management company, Tolly Community Management, and the HOA board, recording this phone call with the vice president in June, where he references the treasurer took action without consulting the board.
There's nowhere where, Janine's actions that she did in the name of the board was going to stand, because I wasn't asking the questions. There was so much stuff done improperly by so many people. So I said, hey, you know what? This all needs to be thrown out.
They threw out those fines, but said a corrected violation for changing her flower bed would be coming.
You don't come on my property and just start doing shit.
It came 1 week after Danielle hired a surveyor to stake her property lines.
So this is on my side of the property line. You didn't get permission for that.
Her neighbor said it was trespassing and called police.
Hold on. I'm sorry. No. I'm going to tell you. It's kind of no debate.
Officers told her the surveyor was within his legal duties.
Please go back inside while they're doing it.
When we tried to get her side of the story,
Are you kidding me?
she wasn't thrilled to meet us.
I'm being harassed now further?
We spoke with another homeowner who says she placed mulch in front of her home without approval and never received a violation.
It's a blatant selective enforcement.
Several neighbors agree, telling us they think the HOA selectively enforces rules, something HOA attorneys say is illegal in Georgia. But there's no agency that holds HOAs accountable.
Unfortunately, they have the power of a little government, and there's not much you can do.
This government eyeing a much bigger role, as we found the HOA president is currently running for U.S. Congress in Chicago, Illinois.
Today, I officially announced my candidacy.
This video posted to YouTube the same week of the police incident and Danielle's new violation.
Become the next United States Congressman from the 2nd District.
There's no higher body in the government to go to and say, hey, by the way, my HOA isn't acting properly. Unless you're going to bring them into court and spend the money to do that and risk paying their attorney's fees on top of it, it can be really tough.
This HOA's attorney, Frank Olson, already charged Danielle almost $700 for one cease and desist letter he sent in September.
Cease further contact with any board member or property manager regarding these matters. Anything else will inure to your immediate and severe financial detriment. Be governed accordingly.
The letter also stating if you do not like the fact that your neighbor sits on the board and has a voice in what happens with your property, perhaps you should have considered that before. The HOA's attorney, management company, and board members did not immediately respond to Atlanta News First Investigates.
I just need this to stop. I really just want to live in peace. There's no reason why I should be threatened with liens over mulch.
Stassi, it's such a wild story, and it has a crazy ending. She was actually voted on the board, the HOA board?
Right, so this is kind of a behind the scenes here, information that didn't really fit into the full story, but Danielle Reyes was voted in with write-in votes to the management company as the secretary, but was never really officially onboarded. And when I listened to some phone calls that she had recorded with the management company, so it's the property manager that was assigned to the community, he said to her that her neighbor told him that she had forfeited the position. And so technically she was voted on the board, she is on the board, but wasn't allowed to be.
Fascinating. You know, a lot of people confuse officers and board members because in most HOAs, the officers are board members and the board members are officers. So someone might run saying, I'm running to be president, or I'm running to be secretary, or I'm running to be treasurer. But in reality, in most HOAs, you're running to be a member of the board, and then the board appoints the officers. And in fact, under the law, you don't even have to be a board member or even live in the community to be an officer, to be president or treasurer or secretary. The board can appoint pretty much anyone they want, depending on those bylaws, right?
It gets so complicated, and really the one thing that I continue to tell people again and again is if you live in an HOA community, not only read your covenants, which are your rules, but read the bylaws, which are the rules for your homeowners association, which is actually an entity, it's a nonprofit, and the board is the people that are running the HOA. It gets so complicated, but in this situation, you know, there's a management company that you've got the board, then you've got the management company that helps the board or kind of is the accountant, and then also can be hired on to do certain things such as what they call drive-bys. So they drive through the community and they note any people that are possibly in violation, and then they report that to the board, and then the board will decide who gets fined. And so fines and fees that aren't paid turn into a lien, and then the lawyer then steps in. And so in this situation, you have so many people involved where Danielle Reyes is not even able to speak to any of the board members anymore. They want her to correspond with their attorney. And in this case, I mean, you heard just some of the letter that the attorney wrote to her. It is a frightening letter. Be governed accordingly. And another thing that I wanted to share is what didn't make the story is also what the management company told her, Tolly Community Management, as she was CCing them on her emails, and she was sending emails of her own cease and desist and other legal letters, just trying to get them to take her seriously. And the president there, Mike Tolly of Tolly Community Management, I have this statement in the article, he told her that I am placing you on notice that any email that I receive from you from this point forward will be billing the association $100 and and asking them to place that as a specific assessment against her account for harassment.
So just communicating she's going to have to pay a special assessment. And
Right.
I mean, I've read my own HOA bylaws and covenants. I mean, it sounds like they can do that. They can actually do that, can't they?
Well, I have read through her covenants. I have read through the contract that Tolly has with the HOA there, and there was nothing that said that if you continually communicate with the management company or with your board, that you can receive a fine. And so that's really important for homeowners to take away, that if it's not in the covenants, it can be a rule that your board has added, but it has to be minor. So something like painting your home a certain color has to be passed in the covenants, which requires a vote. But a rule such as, parking on the street between this time and this time, possibly, they could just send out a notice and make that a rule. But there was no rule that was sent to homeowners in the community that said this. So the question would be, is that fine, that assessment, really valid?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And then a lot of people might just say, okay, if you're in this situation, you're not comfortable in your own home because you feel like you're under siege. So why not just move? Why I would move, just move. The problem is it's kind of hard to sell your house when the HOA has a lien on it, right?
Oh, absolutely. So actually, in going through the liens in the community, I went to the doors of these homes where I saw liens just in the past or present, and I knocked, and I wasn't able to speak with many people, but Danielle's home was also on the court documents as having liens in the past. And I said to her, it's listed as an address, not a homeowner. And she goes, that was the homeowner prior to me, also had issues, she claimed, with the HOA, and therefore had liens on her home. And it delayed her closing because she had to pay off those debts just to get out of the house. Now, Danielle says that she's worked very hard for this home, and she is not going to give up. She just wants the right thing to take place in this community. And as of right now, it is a back and forth between the HOA lawyer and now her hired lawyer of dropping these fines.
What's next in this case?
So right now they are looking towards voting in a new board, or possibly voting in the same board. As we mentioned, her HOA president seems to be currently living in Illinois, around Chicago there, and running for Congress. So if he were to win that seat, would these homeowners really, want him to have two jobs, their HOA here in Georgia and then Congress, up in Illinois? So they will be voting here soon. I believe that they will have a new board here in December, and Danielle is hoping that that will clear things up without having to actually take this to court.
Wow, fascinating. Anastasia Olmos, on top of these homeowner association stories, thanks so much for your reporting.
Thanks for tuning into Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First Investigates. For more on this story, go to atlantanewsfirst.com and click on the ANF Investigates tab. You can listen to more award-winning investigations wherever you get your podcasts by searching Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First. And tune in Sundays for an hour-long episode of Uncovered, where we highlight some of our biggest investigations that impact our communities.